Good day, everyone. So this is something striking just occurred to me. I was reading a report by Huffington Post Canada, and I must say that website's gone a little bit smarter um, since last I checked it out a few months ago. And here's what I saw. Um, in Canada, more homeowners are taking out what are known as reverse mortgages and second mortgages. That means that whatever amount you own in your house, they're they're going to the bank and using it as collateral. And a reverse mortgage is when you don't have to pay back the bank until you're dead, and they sell your house. So basically, what's happening in that scenario is you're not leaving any inheritance for your grandchildren or your kids. So it looks like the Canadians, though I loathe to call them that because so few of them identify themselves as Canadian, but people in Canada, people who live in Canada, are cashing in on whatever amount they have in their house uh, through these reverse mortgages and second mortgages to live in the now, so that by the time they're dead and the bank resells their house, um, there's there's practically nothing left over for their grandchildren or their children. Um, is that no? I read that. That's what that was. I followed up after reading the Huffington Post article, and that's what I found. Reverse mortgages and second mortgages are exploding, are booming in Canada. What I read in the Huffington Post Canada, which I gotta reiterate, is a tad smarter than it used to be, um, is that while real estate listings have skyrocketed, sales have plummeted. So, so Canada, in Canada, Toronto and Vancouver are the hot real estate markets. Per square feet, they're it's said they're one of the most expensive real estate markets in the world. Um, though both cities aren't the stuff of movies or legends or anything like that, of romances. But in recent times, real estate prices in both cities have gone way up through the roof, um, making both cities, uh, the most expensive places to live in the world. Um, Neither of which are the stuff of romance or legend or anything like that. And yet, in recent times, they say the real estate um, sort of like buy sell activity has the air has gone out of it because home listings have gone up, but actual sales have declined. So now there's this big gap between people who want to sell and people who are actually buying. Um, I mean, those are the numbers, right? You have to rely on the scientific method, where you can't see anecdotally with just your eyes and your everyday experience. So that's what's happening. More people want to sell their home, fewer people want to buy it. But as real estate prices have gone up, people have not just been living in their homes, you know, they've actually taken out reverse mortgages and second mortgages, cashing in on the higher value of their home to live in the here and now, so that when they pass on, the bank sells their house for their grandchildren or their children. So Canadians are choosing to live in the here and now by using the higher value of their home, as collateral um, for all these loans. And what's happening is that Canadian banks are looking to the U.S. because these loans, even though on the balance statement they're called assets, you know, when someone owes the bank money, right, in a loan or in a mortgage, the bank calls it an asset. But guess what? What kind of asset is it? Is it like, you know, an asset that you can rely on for until the loans paid off? No, it's actually an asset that depends on the borrower's employment, the borrower's health. You know, is it a loan is an asset to a bank, right? If I owe the bank money, the bank calls it an asset on its balance statement, right? And yet that asset depends on my health, my employment, right? My situation. If something happens to me and I default on that loan, that asset clink isn't so good anymore. So now the Canada's banks have all these assets, which are basically loans from people living in Canada, and I loathe to call them Canadians because they don't even identify themselves as Canadians on the census, even though they might be Caucasian, Caucasoid. But these people have taken out loans from the bank, which have inflated the bank's assets on the balance statement. At the same time, they've done it, these borrowers, because their home prices have gone through the roof. And so they're taking out these loans, these reverse mortgages, second mortgages, that they don't have to pay back until they're dead and gone, in which case, at which time, they leave nothing for their children or their grandchildren. But they've only done so because home prices have risen up. At the same time, thirdly, all these people we see in the market want to sell their home, and fewer and fewer and fewer people are actually buying homes now. Because, fourthly, the sentiment is house prices, houses are overpriced, they're inflated. You can probably get a better lifestyle, better value, just a few, you know, less than an hour outside of the city. So so people feel that real estate is overpriced, especially in Vancouver and Toronto. And yet the people in Vancouver and Toronto have taken out reverse mortgages, second mortgages on home values that have gone through the roof, so that in order to pay back these loans, they must sell. But the terms of the loans are that they only sell when they're dead. And then the bank uses that sale to recoup their money. So basically, after they're dead and they sell the house, the bank takes their money. They leave nothing for their grandchildren and children. Those people are living in the here and now. And the banks, because of these increased loans, have more assets on their balance sheet. But these assets depend on the borrower. If the borrower falls ill, life situation turns around, like turns bad, those assets are like worthless, high risk, right? Especially so much of them on the balance sheet. These banks taking these assets to the international market, hoping someone will buy in and take some of these assets off their hands. And while all these things are happening, right? These four factors are happening. Canada's pretty stagnant. Canada's economic development minister says, you know, this is the lowest point of unemployment since 2001. Most of it is part-time jobs. Like, what kind of part-time jobs are these? Are these like Google part-time jobs, Apple part-time jobs, Amazon part-time jobs? What kind of part-time jobs are these? Are these McJobs, Starbucks part-time jobs? Like, what kind of jobs are these? So now, if they raise the minimum wage here in Ontario and you get $15 an hour, you get $30,000 a year, around that much. you're middle class working at Starbucks. I think the American way of life is more than just making $30,000 a year. I mean, it sounds god awful. Um, it really sounds god awful. Like so now Canada gives you an education. If you're poor, it gives it to you for free, or else it's subsidized. And then you can enter the middle class working at Starbucks. It's sort of like in Canada, everything is just for on paper, right? So if the OECD looks at Canada, it's like everybody's got a university degree, everybody's middle class, but when you put on their shoes and you walk a mile in them, it's like, yeah, I got a university degree. I'm middle class because I make $15 at Starbucks. You know, you know, you might say I'm from a rich family. Um, you know what I mean? I'm from a rich family because we get to do what we want. But to me, that's the American middle class. So that's Canada. Canada, so like banking, looming banking. I'm not gonna say collapse, but I mean I said collapse in the title of the video, but that's the looming challenge for Canada. Also, at the same time, you walk a mile in our shoes. It's like I got my university degree. I'm middle class, but then it's like I'm middle class because I work at Starbucks and I got my university degree. I don't have, healthcare is subsidized, and all that stuff is other subsidized. So my view, I think a lot of people in Canada who don't even identify themselves as Canadians don't really understand it because it's an American middle class point of view, which is you go to school and you end up doing what you want to do. So is like socialism on paper, giving you your education, and after that, you're in the mainstream. You got enough money to pay for a house and pay bills and stuff. But it's like the government can't create enough of those jobs. So it's almost like Maslow's pyramid and all the things that Oprah is chiming in about how to reach the peak, be fulfilled. You end up not really, the American middle class is like, I went to school, I end up doing what I'm doing. In Canada, that's not the case. Give you an education, give you health care. You're in the middle class, you have money to pay the bills, but you're not really doing what you're doing. You're doing whatever seat is available at the time. Um, and everybody seems to be currently living in the now, because in Toronto, Vancouver, and other places, their home prices have gone way up. They used that price increase. What are they using it for? They're not just sitting there. They took out reverse mortgages and second mortgages, so that they got a lump sum of money. They're spending in the now. When they're dead, the bank will sell that and recoup their loan. And so when they're dead, they leave they leave no inheritance for their kids or grandkids. But those things are assets on bank balance sheet. That depends on the person's situation. If they're healthy and they continue, and yet if you try to sell the home to get at that value, boom, people think it's overpriced and people aren't buying it. And so the bank's taking these types of assets that people think are overpriced and aren't buying into the international market, hoping they can get someone else to buy in take some of these assets off their hands. That's what I see. Bye.